Joining us on the phone line now, I believe, is Mike Shaw. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit. It's a little soft.
All right. Well, I'll try to talk a little louder. I know that's not unusual for me.
It's not unusual for you, and we can hear you much, much better now. Good morning, our friend. How are you today?
I think probably like most of the Valley and everyone else, pretty much in disbelief of the sad news that I got last night.
It's terribly shocking news that none of us were prepared for. I mean, he just retired. Like, he just retired. And that's not the plan when you retire.
No, that's not the plan. And, it's interesting that there's so many things I could say about Chuck, but when you have a good friend, I think sometimes we take him for granted. And when he left, I can honestly say, and when I spoke with Michelle last night, when they told us that they were leaving, I said, I wasn't very happy about it. She goes, do you think? Because when they told Beth and I that they were going to be shoving off the Lidditz and be close to their kids, I was certainly happy for them, but very sad for myself and the many, many people in our community that he helped. But in hindsight, God has a plan for all of us. I guess sometimes we don't like that plan, and he knew what he was doing. He did get to enjoy 1 year with Jeff and Gail and Kevin and Becca, and certainly Chase and Jordan, and I'm glad he did now. But it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for a long time. The Valley's been taking some pretty hard hits lately. Another good friend, Jen Parrish, and a lot of people have passed away, and it happens every day. But when it hits close to home, it certainly is difficult.
The Valley's definitely had a rough time recently with a lot of tough news on short notice and some real devastating losses, as you pointed out. Tell me about how you first met Chuck.
Oh, God.
If you can say it on the air.
It was a long time ago, but to become a good friend of Chuck has been in the last 25 or 30 years. But I met Chuck basically when I was in high school, really. Chuck came to the Valley as part of the radio station, and Todd and Chuck became quite a duo there for a long time. And I did some sports on the air even when I was in high school. That's how I first got to meet Chuck, and then of course our relationship developed into very close friends with him and Michelle and his dad Cliff, who he's now reunited with, and Kevin and Jeff growing up, and Michelle and Chuck being like aunt and uncles to my two boys. It just, you had to know Chuck to love Chuck. If you didn't know Chuck, I had friends of mine say to me, how can you like that guy? And because Chuck had, I wouldn't say he was arrogant, but Chuck was very straightforward. And if you didn't know his sense of humor, it would have been hard for people to like Chuck. But I think Steve Pyatt, I heard what you guys said earlier about what Steve said, and him and Paulo are such great people, and they were competitors in a sense, except for Paulo was working for Chuck for a while, and that relationship that Steve and Paula had with Chuck is a relationship that hundreds and hundreds of people had with Chuck since we were blessed to have him come into our community back in 1976.
He's accomplished a lot of things over the years. I'm surrounded in this studio by more awards than I can count, and these are the ones that he left behind. He took a whole pile of them with him to Lidditz. He's an extremely accomplished broadcaster and member of the community. I generally only speak to my relationship with him as it relates to radio, but there's so many other sides to him, from being a husband and a father and a grandfather and a coach and an athletic director and a pastor and a restaurant patron. He liked a lot of restaurants around town. And I know that whenever he did come back to the Valley over the last year for a visit, the first meal was always with you, Mike.
Yeah, I was, as I said, sometimes we have friends and we don't realize how important they are until they're gone. And Chuck liked his food. It didn't matter whether it was Becky's breakfast or Yanuzzi's or, whatever it was. We certainly enjoyed hundreds and hundreds of meals. And, when Michelle called me last night, and I'm on my way home now from Lidditz, got down to see Kevin and Michelle last night and got up early this morning because I got many things going on this weekend, and it's still kind of in disbelief that a man who did so much in our community, and he didn't grow up in our community. He felt he was a Valleyite, but some maybe other people might have felt he was an outsider. But to me, he was the Walter Cronkite of radio, and a consummate professional. So many times people thought that because Chuck was my friend that we have shared the same opinion, and the good Lord knows he was wrong about 90% of the time. We certainly had, we were on different sides of the aisle many times, and people would think, well, if Chuck thinks that, Mike must think that, or if Mike thinks that, Chuck must think that. And that's great, and that's why we had such a good friendship, because he could tell me right where it was at, and I could tell him right back, and I know that Todd is just, you can't have a childhood friend like Todd Bowers and then have a business relationship with a guy named Todd Bowers and work and do all the things that Todd and Missy and their kids did together. And I feel really bad for Todd and everyone, but certainly Todd and Missy, Davo, those guys played golf a lot together, and there's so many good friends. My phone rang off the hook last night, and his church community, and he was so proud and happy to be a part of the many churches that he served, in the Willowana Methodist Church and the Chemung Methodist Church and the Waverly United Methodist Church. And he originally was a member of the Sayre United Methodist Church and lay speaker, and some awful good sermons I heard that guy give. And of course, I was a Catholic, but that didn't matter. I was welcomed anytime I went to the Methodist churches with my wife or with Chuck or his family or whoever. And God, we're awful lucky to have a guy like him.
We sure are. And it's interesting. Chuck and Michelle were planning to come up to the Valley this weekend. The main event, which I'll mention last, he had invited us to come up.
Going to breakfast? That was the last main event, going to breakfast?
That could have been. No, we weren't invited to breakfast, but Irene and I, he invited us to come to church where he was going to be guest speaking or guest pastoring. I'm not sure what they would call it, but we never had the opportunity to hear him deliver a sermon, but he had invited us about a month ago to hear him give a sermon this coming Sunday at his former church in the Valley. And we were really looking forward to that. And the reason that he was going to be in town to be able to do that is for an event this Saturday, which is your son's wedding. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I talked to him, obviously not last night, but the night before, and set some plans in place. And he was looking forward to seeing John and Maria get married. And, he used to pick on my son when John was real little, 2, 3, whatever, and used to call it basket hockey. We used to have a basketball thing, and Chuck he's just like a little kid. And so, yeah, he had a pretty busy weekend planned, and he was looking forward to that. And I'm hoping that they put some things in place. I think we may hear, I don't know if it'll happen, but we may hear one more of Chuck's sermons this Sunday.
That would be very, very cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you've lost your friend. And
we didn't lose a friend. They're going to have to handle all of our friendship, not just mine, all of our friendship with all the legacies that Chuck has built within our community. Not just Chuck, his family, but, Chuck and Todd and I were blessed enough to host the Christmases for Kids for a lot of years, and we got an awful lot of credit for that. And Chuck and I, many times, sitting around the table, playing cards or eating or whatever we were doing, it was our community. It wasn't us. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
We always said that we have such a great community, and it is partly because of guys like Chuck that we had such a great community. But Scholarship Challenge, which was his baby as well. There's so many projects that Chuck undertook, the Valley Flood Relief, just seemed to do things right. And his belief in God was there. And I think all of us need to have that, especially in the times that our world is right now. And he certainly was a mentor to me in a lot of ways. So much to say. There's not enough hours in a day to say it, but I just want to plug you for a minute, Dave and Irene. I spoke with you last night, and Chuck had so many good things to say about what you guys have done there at the station, Matt, and of course the lovely Sherry. I mean, without Sherry, that station would have survived, and Chuck knows that, and Chuck knew that, and he was very glad that you folks got the station. He knows you're going to continue to do the things that he helped start, and so your relationship initially probably wasn't anything, and I think you were blessed over the last year as well to have gotten to know Chuck, and I thank all the community for reaching out to me and to his family, and they're going to hopefully meet today with the funeral director, and we'll get some more plans set in place as to how we're going to honor Chuck, and then we'll go for there. But love and hug the ones you love. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. You know how many times Chuck and I said to one another, why didn't we start talking sooner? If we had gotten together on all of these things that our different stations do to serve the community, it would have been incredible to just see that. And I wish, now that I have gotten to know him so well, I wish that he and I had the opportunity to work together at the same station at the same time. And he was just an incredible partner and teammate, and he became our partner in the future of this radio station, and we're forever grateful for the opportunity to grow, both as business owners but as a family, and to serve the community, and for his trust in us to do this. And as you said, Mike, it isn't us, it's the community. We're here to keep the lights on so that the community can keep doing what it does, and us fulfilling the role that this station needs to in its place.
Well, working for a couple of years actually with Chuck and Sherry and Don and Dean and all the people who were part of the radio station for a couple of years, I saw the things behind the scenes many times, and the undertaking that you guys have, not just one radio station. I mean, that's a task, but the multiple radio stations that you guys have. And so maybe that's the way God's telling us that we need to incorporate all those things. And the Valley, that we can include Owego, and which he has. Chuck always covered a lot of news in Owego, and he had a good friend in the Raftises up there, Mr. Jim Raftis Sr., would call in quite often, and other people. And so, in a way to honor Chuck, we can certainly keep doing the good things that he did, that you do, and that'll make him proud as he's.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Mike, for checking in with us this morning. Again, sorry for your loss, and thank you for going down there to be with Michelle. I'm sure that there are numerous people here in the Valley listening this morning who wish that they could be there to give Michelle a hug and see the boys and Kevin and Jeff and Chase and Jordan and Becca and Gail and give them some love from the Valley. Thank you for being our representative from the Valley and responding so quickly to down there to respond to that need. And we wish you the best of luck this weekend. I know it's going to be really hard for you, but congratulations to your son and his bride. And I'm sure we'll talk again before then. Well, we know you're busy, and we just want to thank you for calling in to share with us a little bit of your relationship with Chuck and give us kind of a bit of an update.
Well, thank you, David, for honoring him with a little bit this morning on the radio. And Michelle sends her love to everyone. And I did give them a couple extra hugs for the entire community. And we will be in touch. God bless.
Thank you, Mike. God bless you as well. And safe travels home. We'll hope to see you here in the Valley in just a few short hours.
Thanks, Dave.